Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. This week was delayed slightly, according to what I read, because of the Olympics, but that's fine. We're here now, and let's just get right into it. First, we're gonna start off with One Piece. Chapter was good, though I don't know why, I guess. Oda's editor cried at either last week or this week's chapter, but I don't know. Maybe from pure excitement, because the chapter starts off with a flashback of Kaido's fight with Odin and the samurai getting away, and how Odin tells Kaido to not underestimate the samurai as the Red Scabbards push Kaido off the ledge that he was standing on to give his speech and actually hurt him, like stabbing through his skin as he's falling. His scar from Odin hurt as they go down. He actually lets out a scream like he's in pain. They fall and everyone starts going into a panic, more or less. They all start getting all panicky, and all of Kaido's men, and that's when the Yokozuna and many of the other disguised samurai undisguise themselves and start the fight. As Big Mom is just now getting happy that violence is happening, Ulti finds Yamato and Luffy and starts fighting Yamato, as Yamato's now going to become Kozuki Odin, and reveals he no longer cares for Kaido at all. Carrot and Nami actually get away from Big Mom, as Big Mom is distracted by Luffy, and so on. Kaido finally realizes Orochi was right, and for some odd reason, many of the Red Scabbards are already kind of hurt, even though they hardly fought with Kaido, but also pretty much Kinemon says that Luffy will be he says the pinnacle of the sea. He basically says Luffy will be the king of the pirates. He'll be the king of the pirates. And then not Kaido. Then Big Mom asks Luffy what he plans to do, and Luffy just says it's an all-out war. He came to beat everyone, which then got everyone to laugh until they realize that everyone's starting to go, like, really fight, as it looks like Perospero has actually made it to the Onigashima. Kaido, hearing Luffy's exclamation of war, accepts the challenge, bursting through in dragon form, taking the Red Scabbards with him. And the final page shows that we're going to get all the Minx Sulong forms, and the next chapter is going to be great. Yeah, that was the chapter. That was a good chapter. It was highly entertaining, and the battle's getting started, so it's something. So I'd give that chapter an A. That was a very good chapter, very entertaining, very good in the story, and Luffy is now going all out war, so we'll see how it happens. Next, we're on to My Hero. Well, that was okay. That was a lot to unpack. Wow, that was... The chapter started with a bunch of the injured quote-unquote students, and many of them being blocked out by the fire that I think... Or no, it might have been Gigantomachia who blew the fire, and they're trapped outside of it when you get Ashido going for the toss, when Gigantomachia ends up realizing that he has to stop playing with gnats to Shigaraki as fast as possible. And apparently the anime actually got it right, whether either or influenced each other, I don't know. But Gigantomachia was the monster thing that Ashido kind of moved away in her childhood, and that she ends up getting frightened by it and missing the throw as Mountain Lady is just tossed aside like it's nothing. But then Kirishima comes in and makes the save, getting pretty much flattened by Gigantomachia as Mountain Lady's done. And we see how Kirishima just blasted forth through the fire, and he was gonna make it. Gigantomachia looking like he's gonna make it and just start running. When we see Kirishima's just spirit climbing up the Gigantomachia's arm, he goes to throw the sleeping medicine into his mouth, but Toga destroys it, but he ended up grabbing Ashido's dose and actually threw it in Gigantomachia's mouth, which he got. Then he ends up getting saved as Gigantomachia is about to swat him like a gnat, as he keeps calling them, because Momo made a whole bunch of artillery. Now they're firing back, and now other more genuine heroes are showing up for the save, and Gigantomachia's getting pissed off now. And then we cut back over, and Shigaraki is down by Endeavor. I didn't see that one, though he does. Then he sort of tells him that he had ideals, Shigaraki anyway, before Endeavor ends up telling him the reason he lost was because he doesn't have ideals. Oh my. Well, the next chapter will be really interesting to see where, or I guess how, Shigaraki ends up pulling that one out, because I genuinely didn't see that one coming. With Endeavor actually pulling off a upset win to some degree. I guess maybe because he's incomplete, but still, that doesn't make any sense. Oh well, we'll end up seeing whether they win, and I wonder how he would do that. Would he keep them in school then? then and have them do the 3 years, as then all of them are in jail, but Shigaraki then more or less grows more compatible with his own powers in jail in Tartarus before he breaks out. Maybe. That would be interesting, giving the heroes a much needed win early, but keeping the series going as the main villain's not necessarily done. That might be an interesting way to turn it around, having Shigaraki lose now, break out of prison later, instead of just downright losing. I didn't actually think that one through. But anyway, that was a good chapter. I would give that one an A. That was a really solid chapter. Next, we're gonna go to Jujutsu Kaisen. That was another fairly good chapter. So the chapter starts with Megumi talking to the hand swordsman, cursed user, that's on the cursed spirit side. He keeps talking about, or explaining, the Ten Shadows technique to him, which is odd, as the hand swordsman ends up sort of complimenting him, saying him and their partner, the nail girl, was strong. We then get a flashback with Goju and Megumi, where they explained how their two families didn't like each other, or I guess the Zenin and Gojo don't like each other. It's because basically the two heads fought each other, and ironically enough had Megumi and Gojo's curse techniques, as Megumi ends up coming up with a plan to stop hand swordsman as they went back in time a bit, so the fight between Jugo and Sukuna is still going on in the background. Megumi ends up, I guess, forcing hand swordsman into an exorcism ritual and summons an absolute monster Shinigami out, like it's something he can't control, as he explained, and it seems like it's an extremely powerful one. Hand swordsman is not pleased, and ironically enough, Megumi ends up realizing he's pretty much dead and eats a hit, leaving hand swordsman all alone with the monster as he gets slammed into a building. As hand swordsman realizes he's screwed, we cut back to Sukuna, who leaves Yoriyami behind, the guy who showed up after his fight with Jugo, and they seem to be friends to some degree, or again, they know each other, but they seem to be close from at least what I can infer from reading. As Sukuna ends up making it to the spot with Megumi and saving hand swordsman, taking a stock of the situation and realizing he has to more or less try to save Megumi by beating the giant cursed spirit that Megumi summoned. Also, he has to keep the hand swordsman alive. It's the reason why Megumi didn't die immediately. So now we get to see Sukuna fighting again, kind of, I guess, all out would be a good way to put it, which will be really fun to see. I don't really have a prediction on this one. Again, I'm kind of still getting my bearings with it, but that was a good chapter. That was an interesting one. It flowed fairly well, too, so I would give that one a solid B. So now we're going to move on to We Never Learn. I don't know how I would put this, but I guess this ending should be considerably more interesting than Fuminu's, because now we have, I guess, Kaminami's one. So now we're on to the Senpai's ending, and this one's already looking like it'll be a really fun journey of ridiculous shenanigans. So it starts with, again, the fireworks festival, as each time it changes the person who grabbed his hand. It was Kaminami this time, and we flash forward, or as she teases him, what if we really end up together was her joke, and well, in this scenario it works out. So it's several years later, and from what I can gather, they mean that they're adults now. They graduated and so on, and Noriyuki ends up on a small island off the coast of Japan, I'm assuming. He ends up as a teacher there, and his class is already very unruly, so he has his work cut out for him. Everyone seems rather nice and so on. On his way home, he sees one of his students, who then passes out. He has his work cut out for him, that's for sure. He goes to the local clinic, and then sees Kaminami there, and we find out that her mother runs the clinic, just one of her clinics, and so Kaminami is doing her residency there, as they explain the path to being a doctor. So I'm assuming it's probably been 6 or 7 years since they graduated high school, or since he graduated high school and she got actually into medical school. She teases him, and he actually still has his usual reaction, which is rather funny. He ends up going home and actually reflecting on, like, getting a flashback of many of the things, and even actually seeing how dedicated Kaminami is to being a doctor. He goes to his apartment, he realizes there's a lot of room, there's a weak part in the wall. He ends up accidentally pushing through it, and lo and behold, Kaminami is his roommate. He sees a fan service scene, which ends up being more humor than anything. He ends up apologizing and so on. And she's practicing her stitching, like doing stitches and so on. She's not very good at it, but then of course Noriyuki just being good at, I guess, hand type thing. I don't know how to put it. Like, he had to probably sew his own clothing a lot, so he was actually fairly good at it. And so now she wants him to help her practice. And so then now they have their story will end up being, I think, probably one of the more entertaining ones outside of the, yeah, it's probably going to be the more entertaining one. Maybe even stealing the top spot. So it'll be a fun one. I look forward to seeing how that one goes. I would give that one a B. That was a good chapter. That was interesting. And now we're moving on to Undead Unluck. Things are more or less going rather well for Undead Unluck. So it starts off with, Andy and Unrepair still dueling it out as they're up in the air. Andy has to reassure the new kid that if they don't take them down, Fuko is dead. So with everything set in place, the new kid, Chikara, ends up actually freezing more or less all of them in play in the air as Andy shoots off one of his finger bullets, as Unrepair ends up actually figuring out Chikara's negator power. Though Andy missed his finger bullet, though it would seem, we get the explanation on how Chikara's negator power worked, which is anything in his line of sight stops moving and anything he more or less touches, but otherwise if it's out of his sight he can move still. He turns it off, the bullet ends up hitting Unrepair's girl he's holding in his arms, hits her right in the shoulder it looks like, but as he's about to go for it again, we end up finding out that Unrepair actually had an artifact hidden up his sleeve, and now the fight ends up being, again, long ranged, but because it's Unrepair, Andy ends up more or less getting hurt, and he protects Fuko and Chikara while getting cut in half, but now he can't regenerate, so then Unrepair still thinks that Chikara's the problem. The negator power is strong, but because he's a scaredy cat, there's a flaw. He ends up staring at him because he's pissed, only to see that he threw out like a dozen slashes that are frozen in the air, and he then compliments him, and now their X factor is to use Fuko in some kind of way to get past Latala, which is Unrepair's female partner, their woman partner, because she can disrupt things, but if you're throwing a curveball, she can't. So they have to use the random power of Fuko's unlock power to stop them. Tatani ends up running up and bouncing them forward so they can get close to him. But Unrepair still thinks he's gonna win. So next chapter is a big one. Next chapter is gonna be a really interesting one. See if they actually finish off the arc or if some other 5th round thing is gonna happen. That was a good chapter though. I would give that one a solid B. That was a good, fun chapter. So now we are on to Black Clover. Wow, that was a great chapter. It starts off with Dante being defeated, Asta being done, everyone thinking it over, celebration, even Ghosh is alive, Vanessa is intrigued by Ghosh and Gray, which is adorable. Yami thinks it's smart to tie up Dante, only to find that the 3rd member of the Dark Triad, Xenon, is already there in half-demon form and impales Yami. He still has the Golden Dawn leader with him, and it's not looking good. Finral already knows how bad everything's looking. Yeah, Xenon says he was coming in, and he's actually taking Dante too, which is surprising. He plans on killing Asta, but then Finral moves the uses his spatial magic to move the attack out of the way. He wants to take out Finral, but there's no time, so he's leaving. Everyone tries to attack, but it's no use. They all fight desperately. Henry tries to slam into him with his sort of jet house, only to get that destroyed. Asta pleads to make another deal with his devil, only for the devil to say that it's Asta's fault for being weak, and he can't make any more contracts with him. Even Vanessa tries with Rogue, only for it to fail. That Yami just simply, he must say something, but he doesn't. There's no speaking away. I didn't expect that they would lose, though Asta still gets Yami's sword, though. And that was the chapter. Wow, that was a great chapter, despite, again, being short, but wow, that was a good one. That was a good chapter. Yeah, that was a great chapter. As now they've all lost, every one of them. How is it going to turn out? I have no idea. Like I had said, I saw this one coming, that they would lose, but wow. That was an A. That was a great chapter. And now we are on to Chainsaw Man. So the chapter starts off with Aki's dead. Apparently he saved up a good amount of money in his will and gave half to, I think, Denji, and the other half to the Himino family, I guess his surviving relatives. He used the money to rent a place, and he lives with power. They seem to be, to some degree, enjoying themselves, only to find out after he wants to go get ice cream and she wants a rice ball with meat. He goes, gets an ice cream, and he's more or less depressed because he killed Aki, and he ends up throwing up the ice cream and is depressed. Makima ends up showing up and notices that he's depressed and brings him back with her to her house, where we see she lives in a rather nice apartment and has 7 dogs. We get to see her and her dogs and how she more or less lives somewhat normally with her dogs and so on. Though, knowing her, this is somewhat subtle, I guess. Manipulation, probably. So, she ends up giving treats to her dogs and everyone, and the whole thing. It's again showing off Makima being normal, and Denji is enjoying himself with it. She sees he's feeling better and even thanks her for it, and she ends up finally saying, or she compliments him, saying he did a good job. But again, knowing her, this seems like manipulation of Denji. And then she remembers that more or less she offered to grant him a wish, and his wish is to be her dog. So, what that means, I don't know, but we'll end up finding out. I know that. Again, I don't dare predict that one because it goes everywhere at all times. So that was a good chapter. It continues to set up wherever the series is gonna go. Again, as my hope is that they keep Denji and Power together, as they're a fun pair. And however Denji ends up living with himself after Aki's death, he might not even, if the future Devil's diction comes to pass, which it might not. Maybe it does, I don't know. If he ends up killing Power or not, how would he live with that? There's a lot of questions, and I look forward to finding out the answers and or more questions. So it was a B, as it's a good setup chapter. So yeah, that was all of them. They were actually all pretty great this week, and it looks like they're on break next week, so which is fine. They'll get some rest and so on. So with that all being said, I hope you enjoyed. Give a like if you enjoyed watching, dislike if you didn't, and as always, thank you for watching.